What is up, Snarf Gang? It's your boy.
Where have you been the past 3 weeks?
I've been sick.
For 3 weeks? I doubt it.
You're right. I've only been sick for like a week and a half. The previous week and a half, I just didn't do anything.
It's like you don't even care about us fans.
You know what? You're right. I need to make an apology video. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm a cute animal. Did it work? You guys forgive me yet? Alright, awesome. So anyway, today is a 1984 review because I finished it a few days ago and I'd like to review it. A lot of people say that, you know, 1984, society is literally like 1984. And I will admit there are some parallels in 1984 that I have noticed in the society that we live in, but there are a lot of things that I also a little bit inaccurate, and there is one thing about the book that I did find a bit unrealistic near the end. First off, let me basically give the premise of what the book is about for those of you that don't know. Minor spoilers, but like this book's super old, so you should kind of know already. This book's basically about a man that lives in, I don't actually remember the name of the made up country, but it's basically like North America, and it's hyper fascist society that's based on a class system of three. You basically have 80-90% of the, it's like 80% of the people are low class grunts. They do like a bunch of the shit work that nobody else wants to. You get 15% of society is like the middle class people that live in semi-luxury, but it's luxury in a fascist slash like socialist society, so it's like not really luxury. And then you have the upper class of society that, you know, lives in lavish luxury, but still not that much. And the basic principles of society are you believe what they tell you to believe, and if you don't, then you're basically fucked. Because they have different ministries that will monitor. They have one that monitors people. They have one that switches out the truth. It's called the Ministry of Truth. They'll like, I think that's what it's called. Their job is basically to just rewrite history and erase all knowledge of something that isn't what's fitting the current agenda. And they have the Ministry of Love. That's basically where they take people that are accused of like wrongthink. And they also have things called telescreens all over the place. They basically monitor people's movements and what they say. And that's basically how they catch you committing what's called like a thought crime. Basically, if you even think against the party once, then you're screwed. So I'm going to skip past a lot of the stuff that's in this, like plot-wise, because I think the real meat of 1984 is in its story. There are some things you can get out of the plot part of the story, but you should just read it for yourself. Basically, the main character, he doesn't like the party, obviously, because it fucking sucks. But he gets caught, and he gets taken in the Ministry of Love, and, you know, they torture him for not liking the party, basically. And he finds out what the foundation of society is built on. Basically, there are three main countries in the world. There's East Antasia, Eurasia, and the one that the main character's living in that I don't really remember. They basically all hate each other and are constantly trying to take each other over in an endless war. But they all have the exact same principles. All the other two countries are run the exact same way this one is. And the only reason that they're fighting is because the people in power need to stay in power by creating constant conflict to distract the middle class from the fact that they don't actually need an upper class. And it's also to constantly burn a surplus of resources to keep people in a survival instinct mindset so that they're more worried about what they need to survive rather than human enlightenment and, you know, a worthwhile existence. Because of that, they've also based their entire society around hatred. basically of anyone that opposes them, and stomping on other people in order to thrive. Because that way, there's also a bunch of secret police, kind of like in China, where people will rat each other out, so that way you can't trust anyone around you, and you have to constantly act like you're for the party even if you're not. So that's basically the society that they live in. Now, in terms of I'll talk about the end of the book in a sec, because I do have some things I want to say about that, because he does get tortured in the Ministry of Love eventually. So spoilers, but this book doesn't have a happy ending, so if you're looking for that, then don't read it. But basically, here are the parallels between the book and that I've seen in mainstream society, that I feel like a lot of people, and there's a lot of things that don't parallel mainstream society. One thing that I have noticed is how hateful people are nowadays and how tribalistic their mindsets are. In 1984, you're either with the party or not, and if you're not with the party, they hate you. There's basically zero humanity in their way of thinking. That is a very now way of thinking, I feel like, whether regardless of whatever your political party is or religious beliefs or whatever, if you're basically just not a part of that, people tend to just hate everyone that isn't a part of that. And that is something that I noticed very much. And also noticing that helped me correct a few things that I have been thinking subconsciously, because reading this book helped me notice them. So that is a positive effect that the book had on me. Another thing that I have noticed is that another parallel between the book and society is that you can basically just get kidnapped by the government and they can do whatever the fuck they want to you, and there's basically nothing you can do about it. This is not an aspect of society that a lot of people notice, but the government has been admitting to doing stuff like this since like the 50s. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of MK Ultra, but basically a bunch of people across the Canadian and US border were just kidnapped to do experiments on involving LSD to find out new interrogation methods. That is completely immoral and illegal, but they waited a really long time to reveal that it happened. First off, I'm going to say why they do that, but they waited a long time to reveal that they did it so that people stopped caring because it was such a long time ago. And you may be wondering, why would they reveal that they did it at all if they don't want people knowing about the fucked up shit that they do? The thing is, they do want people knowing about the fucked up shit that they do, because that they have zero morals, and that you basically they want you to know that you can't fight against them, because if you do, they're going to do all those fucked up shit to you. So that's why they reveal it. It's as a threat and an intimidation tactic so that people don't rise up against the government. That's something else that I've noticed. A connection between the book and mainstream society. Now, here are things that the book got wrong, because the book's called 1984. If you don't know the reason for that, it's because George Orwell wrote this book in like the 50s, I think, maybe even earlier than that. I'm not really sure on the timeline when the book was written, but it was in the 1900s, predicting what 1984 would be like. And one thing I think he got wrong was, in the book, they're part of the general way of thinking the government wants you to think is like very anti getting pleasure from like sex and any desire whatsoever. It's like they don't want you to orgasm. They don't want you to be with someone you're attracted to or someone that you love. They want you to just have sex to reproduce and to just not get any enjoyment or pleasure out of it. I feel like that is not a very good representation of how society is today. Not that I expected the book to be a perfect oracle for the future, but I do think it's important to point out things that the book says that society, that just isn't what society is like, because people point to it as an example so often. I feel like we live in a very hedonistic society now. People are very focused on sex to the point where it seems like the general school of thought for most people is that sex is one of the most important things in life, and that you can't be fulfilled without it, which I really don't like that way of thinking, because for different personal reasons, but also because it's just not true. Now, those are all basically the parallels I had drawn from that in society. There are probably other things I could get into if I reread it, but this is just on reading it once what I noticed. Now let's talk about the end of the book. Our main character, he kind of had like he kind of fell in love with a girl before getting captured by the Ministry of Love. So I'll get into that later. Just know that it happened. Basically, they separate him from her and they're torturing him for months on end, drugging him, beating him constantly. They'll give him like 2 or 3 hours of respite and then they'll just go on beating him constantly. Kicking him in the balls, shocking him, exposing nerve endings and like just like torturing the shit out of him for like hours and brainwashing him. And the guy, there's basically a group called the Brotherhood in this book that's against the party, and this guy tricked him into revealing himself because he was actually thought police, but he was posing as the Brotherhood to our main character, and that's how he basically got caught and went to the Ministry of Love in the first place. So that guy is in charge of his case because basically what the party does whenever someone commits a thought crime is they don't just kill you, because killing you would make you a martyr, and they don't want people to have martyrs for the other side. So what they basically do is no matter how long it takes, they will torture you and brainwash you until you love the party, then they'll kill you. So that whenever you're finally killed, you're defeated and you're a shell of your former self. That's basically what they do. That's another thing I feel like doesn't really equate to regular society, because I do feel like that is something the government would do if they did catch you, but I don't think they would wait until you love them. I think they would just torture the crap out of you to make you feel bad and then they'd kill you. I don't think that they would force you to conform to their way of thinking. I think that they would consider that a waste of resources at a certain point, unlike the party in this book. But another thing I didn't like was a lot of the party's ideology is also your collective consciousness isn't truth. If you're seeing something right in front of you, like I'm holding 2 fingers, if they say it's 3, then that means it's 3, because how can you trust your own consciousness whenever the party is so many people's consciousness and they're saying it's the complete opposite? So our main character Winston, whenever the guy, I think his name was O'Hare, who's doing all this crap to him while he's in the Ministry of Love, some of the things he says, there are very much arguments against and massive logical fallacies in. And yes, he'll torture you if you're, say something he doesn't want to. But for certain parts of the book, something I didn't like was that Winston said, I couldn't think of an argument for this. Here's an example. The guy was explaining why the party does what it does. He said basically the reason was they just want ultimate and absolute power no matter what, because if everyone thinks the exact same way, then you're immortal because your thoughts live on through everyone else, and that's basically it. And he was just like, there's no argument against that, it makes total sense. And I'm just like, I thought of an argument immediately. What's the point of living then? Because the society that they wanted is built entirely on hatred. They want there to be no love or no happiness for anyone. So I would just personally be, if I was in that situation, I'd just be like, well, what's the point of existing then? Why would you even want to live forever at that point if you get no joy or satisfaction out of anything? Doesn't make any sense. But that's pretty much the only thing I didn't like about it. After reading it, it kind of made me depressed for like a day or two, and then I kind of got over it. So if you want to, I don't want to get into my conspiracy theory type thinking, my, not like the Dawn soap thing, but like real conspiracy stuff. But I do think that it is kind of depressing, stuff like it also just goes to show that we do really live in a world that just doesn't have that much justice. Justice does occur, but it's random, stuff like pictures of Hunter Biden smoking crack, will be out there, or literal proof of him sex trafficking, and people like that will just run free because their dad's the president or they're protected. And, it really just goes to show that we just live in a lawless society if you're someone with power. So reading that book just kind of reminded me of all that, because usually I just try to ignore all of that. Overall, I think I would give 1984 like an 8 out of 10. It is a very depressing book. It took me so long to get through because it's just very sad. It took, like, whenever I was reading it, I'd read it in like big bursts. I probably read this thing in like 7 sittings, but I had to take breaks from it because it just made me very sad. Also, can everyone give a like in the video for our guest appearance, Nova? my doggy. She helped me with that amazing apology video. That's totally gonna make everyone give me a crap ton of sympathy. So thank you, Nova. Say hi, Nova. Hello, everybody. I hope you like this video a lot because he put a lot of thought into it and stuff. Thanks, Nova. I really appreciate that. Anyway, see you guys.